America's national parks have a fame problem. The best-known names, Yellowstone, Yosemite, Zion, pull enormous crowds, and for many travelers, that can turn wilderness into a waiting room. Yet the national park system is far larger than the handful of headline parks. Scattered across the map are places with the same legal protection, the same scientific importance, and often the same jaw-dropping scenery, just without the traffic jams at trailheads. These are parks where you can hear wind in grass, not a chorus of car doors. 10 in particular stand out for visitors who want space, silence, and a richer sense of discovery. Begin in the far north, where Alaska reshapes every assumption about scale. Gates of the Arctic National Park and Preserve. There are no roads into it, no visitor center in the usual sense, and no official trails threading the landscape. The park was established in 1980 as part of the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, and it protects a vast sweep of the Brooks Range, mountains, tundra, and braided rivers that still run by their own rules. People often arrive by bush plane to villages like Anaktuvuk Pass and step into a world of caribou migrations and midnight sun. The name Gates of the Arctic comes from naturalist Bob Marshall, who described two peaks as gateways into a mountain realm. Travel here is closer to expedition than vacation. Map and compass skills matter, weather can change in minutes, and river crossings are routine. The reward is rare in the lower 48, a national park where solitude is not a lucky accident, but the default condition. Not far away, also in Alaska but utterly different in character, is Kobuk Valley National Park. If you've ever wondered what a true Arctic desert looks like, Kobuk answers with the Great Kobuk Sand Dunes. Tens of thousands of acres of pale sand, sculpted by wind, sitting improbably above the Arctic Circle. These dunes formed from glacial outwash. Ancient glaciers ground rock into sediment, rivers carried it, and wind piled it into shifting ridges. In summer, the sand can feel warm underfoot. In winter, it becomes a frozen landscape of blue shadows. Kobuk is also a living cultural region. For Inupiat communities, this is homeland. Roots, hunting grounds, and stories anchored to the river corridors. Visitors who come with humility often find that the most memorable moments aren't the dunes themselves, but the sudden appearance of a caribou herd moving with purpose across open country. Practical tip: plan for bugs in midsummer and consider shoulder seasons if you can handle cooler temperatures. From Arctic quiet to subtropical wetlands, Florida holds one of the most underrated national parks in the country. Dry Tortugas National Park. It sits about 70 miles west of Key West, reachable only by boat or seaplane, which naturally filters crowds. The centerpiece is Fort Jefferson, a massive 19th-century coastal fortress built from more than 16 million bricks, an engineering project meant to control the Gulf of Mexico's strategic sea lanes. The fort never fully served the military role imagined for it, but it became a prison during the Civil War era, most famously holding Dr. Samuel Mudd after Lincoln's assassination. Today, history shares the stage with coral reefs and clear water. Snorkelers drift over seagrass and reef fish. Birders come for sooty terns and brown noddies that nest here in spectacular numbers. Travel advice is simple and strict. Bring sun protection, carry more water than you think you need, and respect the remoteness. The ocean is the road, and it sets the schedule. If you want a desert that feels both intimate and immense, turn to Guadalupe Mountains National Park in West Texas. This park protects the highest peak in Texas, Guadalupe Peak, and a remarkable geologic story, the fossilized remains of a Permian reef. Roughly 250 million years ago, a shallow sea covered this region, and an enormous reef system grew along its margins. When the sea vanished, the reef turned to stone and later rose into mountains. Hiking here is like walking on an ancient seabed lifted into the sky. McKittrick Canyon, in particular, surprises first-time visitors with autumn color. Maples and oaks glowing in a landscape many people assume is only cactus and rock. The park's remoteness keeps visitation modest, but it also means you must respect desert logistics. Carry ample water, start early, and expect wind. On a clear day from the summit, the horizon feels endless, and the silence has a weight to it. For a different kind of desert, one built on volcanic force rather than marine fossils, Craters of the Moon National Monument and Preserve in Idaho offers a stark, otherworldly terrain. Though technically a national monument and preserve rather than a national park with that exact title, it is part of the national park system and delivers the same protected grandeur with fewer crowds. Here, lava flows spilled across the Snake River Plain in multiple eruptions over the last 15,000 years, recent in geologic time. The result is a sprawling field of black basalt, cinder cones, spatter cones, and lava tubes. Early explorers struggled to describe it. Today, visitors can walk the Inferno Cone, descend into caves with permits, and see how life reclaims raw rock. Lichens first, then hardy plants, then a more complex web. Summer days can be hot on dark stone, but mornings and evenings are magical. If you come in spring, you'll see wildflowers in improbable places, blooming from cracks in lava. In the Great Basin of Nevada, Great Basin National Park holds one of the most compelling combinations in the system. High alpine country, ancient trees, and deep caves, all in a park that remains refreshingly uncrowded. Wheeler Peak rises above 13,000 feet, catching snow while the valleys bake below. The park's bristlecone pines are among the oldest known living organisms on Earth, with some individuals approaching 5 millennia. These trees survive by growing slowly in harsh conditions, producing dense wood that resists decay. Nearby, Lehman Caves, protected long before the park was established, offer a subterranean gallery of stalactites, stalagmites, and rare formations such as shields. Great Basin is also an international dark sky park, and the night here can be as memorable as the day. The Milky Way often appears as a bright, textured band rather than a faint suggestion. Tip for visitors: plan for altitude. Even short hikes feel different above 10,000 feet, and weather can swing from summer heat to mountain chill in the same afternoon. On an island far from the mainland, Isle Royale National Park sits in the cold waters of Lake Superior like a world apart. It's reachable by ferry or seaplane, and that barrier of water keeps numbers low while intensifying the sense of arrival. Isle Royale is famous in ecology for a long-running study of wolves and moose, a predator-prey relationship shaped by ice bridges, genetics, and the changing climate. But you don't need to be a biologist to feel the island's power. The shoreline is a mosaic of coves, basalt ridges, and inland lakes linked by portages. Canoe routes and backpacking trails weave through boreal forest, where loons call across water at dusk. Human history here includes indigenous presence, commercial fishing, and copper mining that reaches back thousands of years, evidence of ancient tool-making and trade. Travel advice: pack for rain and cold, even in summer, and build flexibility into your schedule. Lake Superior is famous for rough water and sudden changes. In the Pacific Northwest, North Cascades National Park is sometimes called the American Alps, yet it remains one of the least visited national parks in the lower 48. That's partly because much of it is rugged backcountry with steep relief and serious terrain. The park protects a dramatic concentration of glaciers, more than any other U.S. park outside Alaska, though those glaciers are shrinking, making the park a frontline classroom for climate science. The scenery is sharp and vertical, serrated peaks, turquoise lakes fed by glacial melt, and forests that climb from temperate rainforest to alpine meadows. The North Cascades Highway skirts the complex, offering access to viewpoints and trailheads without requiring technical mountaineering. But the best solitude often comes a few miles in. A practical note: this is bear country and mountain weather country. Carry the essentials, check conditions, and treat every hike like a small expedition. In the southeast, Congaree National Park in South Carolina protects a different kind of grandeur. One of the largest remaining tracts of old-growth bottomland hardwood forest in the United States. It's a floodplain ecosystem shaped by the Congaree and Wateree rivers, where periodic flooding replenishes soil and allows trees to grow exceptionally tall. Some of the park's champion trees, loblolly pines, sweet gums, bald cypress, reach heights that surprise visitors who associate big trees only with the West. The experience here is intimate. Boardwalks lead into a cathedral of trunks and knees, and paddling Cedar Creek offers a quiet, water-level view of the forest's architecture. The human history is layered too. Indigenous communities lived and traveled these river corridors, and later, the difficulty of logging swampy terrain helped spare sections from the saw. Visit in cooler months to avoid mosquitoes, and after heavy rains, check flood conditions. Congaree teaches a subtle lesson. Wilderness doesn't need mountains to feel immense.
Finally, for a park that blends archaeology, geology, and wide-open desert, Petrified Forest National Park in Arizona remains strangely undervisited compared with its neighbors. Here, late Triassic ecosystems, around 200 million years old, are preserved in stone. Ancient conifers fell, were buried by sediment, and over time their organic material was replaced by minerals, turning wood into shimmering quartz-like logs streaked with iron and manganese. The park also protects expanses of painted desert badlands, where layered clays and volcanic ash form bands of pink, purple, gray, and ochre. Human stories run deep. Petroglyphs, ancient pueblos, and traces of historic routes like the old alignment of Route 66. A key travel tip is to slow down. Many visitors drive through quickly, but the park rewards short hikes, Blue Mesa's loop among striped hills, or the quiet trails near Crystal Forest where petrified logs lie scattered like fallen columns. And because the park sits at elevation, winter can bring snow, adding a rare hush to the desert palette. Taken together, these places reveal a national park idea that's larger than any single iconic vista. Some are hard to reach by design, guarded by distance, water, or rugged terrain. Others sit in plain sight, overlooked because they don't match a popular mental image of what a park should be. The practical thread that connects them is preparation. Fewer crowds often means fewer services, longer drives between gas stations, and more responsibility placed on the visitor. But the deeper thread is emotional. In quieter parks, you don't just see landscapes, you sense how they work. You notice the direction of wind on dunes, the logic of a fossil reef turned mountain, the slow persistence of a bristlecone pine, the way floodwater writes the growth rings of a forest. If your goal is not simply to collect famous viewpoints, but to experience protected America as living geography and living history, these hidden corners offer something increasingly rare: room to pay attention.